See if we get some comments on the drive. See if,
Is there anybody watching? If you're out there, we need to know. We need to know if you can hear us. We need to know if we're back after our technical difficulties. We're good? Oh, I can hear myself in the hallway. That sounds good. All right. Hopefully we have our internet fixed here and we can keep on rolling. We're going to roll into the Ultra Force section, I think, if we're good here, right? Oh, we want to do load sticks. All right. All right. We're going to go load sticks. So can you still hear me over here? You want to bring the mic a little closer? I'm so scared they can't hear us now. And I'm so nervous about not being able to hear us. So we make a couple different kinds of load sticks, and Dave can come and talk about some functionality. We got our new one, our new dual stick. We're pretty excited about that. We have our standard load stick, our less expensive one that doesn't have the travel indication on it. Those are always ready to go. We don't have one up here. They're pretty basic. They just show you the load. This is our dual stick we got on here on this right front corner. This is our Gen 1 of our dual stick, and then we do have our new Gen 2 here. Dave is the one that builds us this functionality with the potentiometer to be able to zero the load through travel, to do incremental moves. And this one also gathers your center to center, so you got real accurate numbers for your right front corner data or left front corner data. Dave and Justin can talk. Maybe Seaford, are you using this anywhere? Seaford's not even here. He's in the back. That's okay. Don't get up. We got it. Justin and Dave can get in here and talk about the load sticks. Ours is ratcheting, so at any point through travel, you can zero the length and the load and take incremental moves. So you can check the rate of the spring through travel in half-inch, inch increments, whatever you want to do. You guys should talk about like the brand. So Justin's a Rage chassis. You're telling guys loads on the right front, put your right front at this distance, and you should have X amount of load. This is kind of the most popular tool lately in the last couple of years is, the Ultra Force machine working hand in hand with the load stick and getting data from each racetrack when your car is working good to be able to repeat when you go back to that track, and you with your customers all over the country be able to tell a guy in California, hey, we found something cool. Need to take the right front, go to 17, should be 800 pounds, whatever it is, blah, blah, blah. And is that kind of what you're doing with your guys?
Yeah, exactly. It's all started off with we just used it as a ride height number, kind of a scale number, just so if you're at the track, you could repeat yourself if you're wrecked or whatever, if you just got out in left field, and especially if you're gone from the shop for a few days. So we just use that as a baseline. Well, then that evolved into checking the loads further into travel. And that's where you can really start learning what your car's doing and what a spring's doing for you. And that's where the game's at. It takes some time. And these new tools with the travel and the load just makes it really convenient and really accurate.
Yeah, for sure. What about car to car? I mean, we talk about it all the time on Bob and Chad, like what your number isn't necessarily what yours is going to be on your new low umbrella you got coming. You can't take a Rage number and put it into a Shaw, and you can't take a Shaw number and put it into a lethal, right? I mean, it's a little bit different based on your shock location and your spring location.
Yeah, exactly. You need to go off what your chassis builder's recommending, no matter what brand of car it is. I mean, you might find something else that works for you, but your center to center numbers, especially, you need to stick with from brand to brand. Load numbers, they could vary all over from, 3 brands might be the same and others not, but in the end, it don't matter what the load is if you're at a different center to center. You got to have the whole package to keep it together.
I'll add, like Justin, with being an established chassis builder, he's got a center to center. These 2 parts on his race cars are jigged. So if he gives somebody a center to center and a load number, it's going to be right on. For you guys that don't have a chassis builder that's, say, not jigging this upper mount, you still can use this to establish your own baseline numbers, and then it's really good for repeatability if you're going to ever get your car back to where you're trying to get it after a crash.
Exactly. There's endless things you can do and or learn with this tool. It's really the wave of the future and kind of where everybody's going to right now. I know a lot of guys, they might scale their car the first time and kind of get their left percentage, rear percentage, and their baseline numbers, and they don't even hardly get the scales out anymore after that with with the use of an Ultraforce machine and now the load stick.
If you're building your own lower and you're welding that shock mount on, you should almost build a jig to make sure that shock mount's in the same spot.
Yes, exactly. Every lower that we go out, that we send out at Rage is jigged. They're all the same. The upper shock mount's jigged, just like Dave said. It's very important for repeatability. There's shock mounts out there in the lower, for the lowers that are 1/4 inch different, just in standard heights, and that's going to change it completely.
1/4 inch is a ton. In a 500-pound spring, that would be 125-pound difference.
Yeah.
That'd be huge.
Yeah. So this is the new one. Dave, what do we got different going on in this new one then? We're going to have some cool stuff in there. We're going to have an alarm, I think, right?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. Like we borrowed the technology from the original manual Ultraforce machine for this original unit. We've now borrowed the same technology you saw earlier in the stagger gauge. So now we've got colored touchscreen. The biggest difference here, you can go with this one here. When you get to a maximum limit, we've set, I think, at 1,800 pounds now, there'll be an audible indicator in the inside, an alarm to tell you that you're above that limit. Slight differences in the fact that there's no more plus and minuses for positive typically was a tension, negative was in compression. Now we've actually have an LED that says whether or not you've got increased or decreased load. And again, you can zero, you got your baseline 0. And we even have the option now for tearing the baseline load, which will reset every time that you turn the machine or turn the device on or off. But if for whatever reason you want, let's say you've maybe bent a load cell or something, you can always go back in and get your original 1-0 just by pressing the load button there. Other than that, same type of functionality, just improved to the color touchscreen. Made it smaller. You talked about putting hooks on the end to be able to hook it over to the chassis rail. Again, we've been on a couple iterations of this design too, but looks like this one's about ready to go.
Yeah, so you would use these load sticks on jack stands, right? And when we first built it, we put it on Steve-O's car and went and pulled it down like a pull-down rig, and we found a bind. So his right front shock mount bolt was actually bound up. So you can find binds. You can take the car and pull it down on the ground at dynamic and see if there's a bind. But generally, we're using this in the air, correct, on jack stands to find the load and the travel. You're putting a suspension under 1,400 pounds of load. You're not going to be wanting to put your hands in here. Things happen. Make sure you tighten the bolts. Make sure you tighten the jam nuts. We've had a couple of guys that make mistake and have these things come apart. This is a dangerous tool. We just want you to be aware not to be laying underneath the right front suspension when you're pulling it down. And you always want to grease these threads too. We've had a couple threads where they weren't greased properly and they had some bindage going on there. So just a couple little safety notes on the load sticks. Anytime you're taking the device, whether it's a load machine or a load stick, and putting it under thousands of pounds of load, you're asking for problems. So keep your limbs out of there and stay away from that suspension, when you're in there working on that corner, just to be safe. So, any other questions on that? Any additions, corrections?
Point out the tall cup if you want.
Yeah, this is we were talking earlier about the spring cups. This is our 485T. So that has a little bit more height to it on the left front. If you're not using a chain to tie down the left front and you're coming off that left front spring, that allows you to keep that alignment going. Oh yeah, and then this is our new jam nut wrench for our screw jack jam nuts, 1 1/8 inch. Nice little 12-point wrench for going in there in the tight spaces and getting your screw jack jam nuts loosened up. One other thing we did with the load stick, I don't know who first thought of this or who did this first, do we know? Jason, you're using it as your bump steer. So
yeah,
we're offering the ratcheting not a load stick, I guess it's a bump stick. So you can take your existing load stick and use it when you're doing bump steers. So it's just real nice to take your suspension.
So what you'll do with this, it's basically a 7-inch stroke, very similar to the actual load stick, only we have an extension in there to take that place. We'll put it in on the right front where your shock would normally go on a dirt late model or on a modified, and then we will basically ratchet this up. I know a lot of people use use the old Ford bottle jack where you have the screw on your drill to bring it up and down, or you try to use a floor jack around your bump steer gauge. This moves all those jacks up top where it's easy to reach. just like that. Works the exact same. Also, it makes sure you don't bump your gauge on accident whenever you're moving something down below. Really handy whenever it comes to making your bump steer adjustments, and makes it a lot easier to do.
So since we got this right front corner here, we'll touch on the fabricated blowers. We've been building these for a couple years now. This is our fabricated Chevelle replacement. We make these for a couple different chassis builders, and some guys use them. You can either, we send it out with a welded shock mount that you weld in place, or we can put a swivel mount on there too. So those are pretty nice lower control arm for a Chevelle replacement. I think we'll move to Ultraforce machines now if we're ready to do that. We talked earlier about the 5-inch Torrington bearings being essential. So we got these two spring assemblies here set up, and as you can see, I don't know if you can get that landed or not, but we got 600 pounds on both these assemblies. And this spring has a Torrington bearing, and you've seen how effortless that was. I'm spinning that, and this one does not. And you know, I'm a pretty good actor, but I mean, there's load there, there's bind there. So that shows you the real essential. You know, it's hard to disagree with the advantage there to the spring when you barely have to even work to turn that. And this one, you know, you can't. I need two in there to get it done. So that just shows you the essential and the advantage to having that bearing in there on that load. So. And Dave is here, and we are very excited to finally have a Gen 3 Ultraforce for you to look at. And again, the same family of touchscreens, right, that we're using on the stagger stick and the dual stick. And this is now our new larger window for our manual machines that we're really excited about.
Yeah, cascading, again, the same technology of the touchscreen, colored touchscreen. Eliminates a lot of buttons. Here we've got, whether you're in pull or smash mode now, is actually just a touch button, and allows you to zero both travel and load. And when you first fire the thing up, you've also got the ability, for whatever reason, if you've overloaded something and bent the load cell or something, you can go back and zero your original load.
Because they do stretch, right? I mean, if you get into a situation where you abuse that load cell, and that's where a lot of guys say, well, my machine's reading 4 now or 5 now. Well, it's not necessarily the accuracy that's gone. It's just that you've stretched, or
It's typically just a shift in the zero.
Yeah.
So that allows you to be able to push the button. It'll reset so that you won't forget the fact that you have stretched something, but every time you fire it up, then you can just hit the load. It's actually a button under the load, and you can zero that back out. Probably, again, the other thing is we've gone away from a plus minus for tension and compression. And we've actually got, it says whether you're in tension or compression. And then based on that, let's say you're in compression, it tells you whether you've got more or less load on from your set point. And the same thing with travel. Are you going longer or shorter than your set point? Instead of just having the numbers go up and down from that location, plus or minus. We thought that was an easier way to understand which direction you were going on that. Other than that, again, went from a 2.5-inch screen, 2.4 screen that you saw on some of the other tools, to a 5-inch, and large LCD or LED looking digits, and the touchscreen capability.
Dave, are we going to tell them about the next version of this? The Gen 3G?
The gens keep going on this. I don't know what gen. We talked about a Gen 3G, which is for graphing. So we're now working on the ability to go through. You'll be able to select a graphing option. It'll take you to a graphing page. You'll manually go through the travel. It will store that information. And I believe right now we're looking at the ability to overplot about 4 different plots, but have that information stored for you.
So kind of in between of our manual machine, which this will be our transition to our normal manual machine, and the fully automatics. So the fully automatic will run the test automatically, capture the data, and then you can lay it over it. And that's the technology we use with AccuForce with Keith. We all kind of work together, but this one will run the test manually with the switch, just like we would normally do. And as you go through that motion, you'll capture the points and then be able to graph it. So we'll have an introductory Gen 3, and then for X amount of dollars, once he figures out how much that functionality is worth, it'll be a couple $100 more for that graphing capability. to do that on this machine. So we're excited to have Dave here with us. He does a lot of the cool stuff, and he's a very smart engineer, and it's a pleasure to have him on our team and be able to build really cool tools like this, like the stagger gauge and the center measure tool and the load machines to be able to help you guys run races. And thanks for coming up today. It was awesome to have you. And we're going to get on software, our 4-link software, that you were the man behind that too. So we'll get on that shortly here in a little bit. We want to go over some things on the Ultraforce machines. On the auto side, we'll have Jason and Brad JJ Miller, the Thriller, come in here and talk about the coilovers and that kind of stuff. And we're going to rip this guy apart and put a pull bar in here so we can do some pull bar testing. So we'll kind of move some stuff around. You guys can go there. Actually, we might as well show this. One of the cool features of the auto is I just hit unload spring. So in a rapid way to set the loads on like a rear of a modified or any, I guess any, do you use the rapid function if you were setting it on like a right rear of an asphalt lane model? Any corner you can say move to center, move to start position. So let's say this one we got set at 18.288. If you knew that was your right rear center to center, you just hit move to start, and it'll move automatically to that center to center. And at that point, then you could set your load that you wanted to achieve on that corner. And in a matter of seconds, you don't have to go manually up and down on the switch. It'll run right to your pre-programmed center to center. Then you can set your load and you're happy, you're good to go. Then unload spring and you can go out and right to the race car. Is that a functionality you use?
Yeah, that'll cut down a lot of your time there at the track, especially if you're in a smaller crew scenario where the driver, and maybe it's a driver and one helper, you don't have to stand here and manually do as much. You can put it in there, hit the button and move to start after you've selected under the file number which corner you're on. You can select that. You can run back and forth to the car to take off another corner. You don't have to stand in here and manually move it back and forth. Saves you a little bit of time on that aspect as well.
So we'll pull this one out. We'll put a pull bar in here, get this one ready to go. And you guys maybe can just talk about the coilovers or where you want to go.
Real quick, we're going to talk a little bit about our clevis system. So our clevis system has been this way for a couple of years. For those that haven't seen it, hopefully you can see that. Our pins have a 1/2 inch and a 3/4. And this is on the traditional manual as well as the automatic. This is a standard pin setup. So you use your 1/2 inch for sliders for the rear of a modified or coilovers on a late model. Then you can take the step bushing out. Take the step bushing out, which has a little nub on there. Now it goes all the way in where you can do a 3/4, so you get full engagement for a pull bar. One side is a point, the other side is a flat for your tape measure to double check. In case you ever want to double check, some of the old school guys like to double check with a manual tape because they feel better about it. That's our standard clevis, which comes standard on the machines. We do have a new style clevis, which I'll show in a minute for the asphalt late models primarily. We'll move over here and I'll ask Justin to come here and help me in a quick minute. So this again is a new Gen 3 machine with a lot better display than ever before. Really easy to read. You want to walk them through real quick how you might set the rears on a modified and how that relates back to the fronts with the load stick, how you were talking about that.
Yeah, so on a manual smashing machine, if your chassis builder gives you your center to center, typically on a right rear or a left rear, they're gonna give you a center to center for your ride height number, so to speak, and then the load number for it. So you just put the spring or right rear coilover or the slider assembly in. I typically like to always go up to my number, not ever down to the number. So we just load it in there, go up to your center to center. It's going to display right on the machine what your true center to center is, down to the thousandth, which is way more accurate than any of the rest of us are ever going to be, and tell you your load number at the same time.
So let's say for your car, your chassis builder gives you 20 and 1/2 inch. And as you use the machine more, you get where you're a little faster with it. But you can see that you land fairly close to it. Now the chassis builder here may give you a load number. Let's say in this example, it's 20 1/2 inches at 530 pounds. Then this would be set.
Yep, be set, take it out, bolt it on the car.
And so that's one of the ways that you can use a manual one with the modified, which is very popular in the modified, is to put the rears on with this. You've got your coilovers behind or your sliders in front if you have a USRA or B mod. On the right rear, if you are on a slider, you can set them like this, or if you're on a coilover, like let's say obviously 4-link cars are, and the USRA 4-link cars are, you can put your coilover assembly in just normal like you normally would. Set it just like this. This will help you set those numbers so you can match the chassis builder's numbers, so that way you're not off in left field, hopefully, while he's thinking you're in a different spot. And or you can also tell him. Step further from that is as you work with your chassis builder, he may have a 1 or 2 inch number.
Exactly.
And you can work with them on that. So that'll be your travel, your more dynamic stance numbers. So now I'll talk for just a minute on the dirt late model side or the pavement late model side with the manual. Often we'll get a coilover number for our ride height, and then we may get an extended number on the left rear, which again, you may get that on the modifieds, or you may get a 3-inch number or a 4-inch number on your dirt late model. You would come over here and just click your 0 on your distance there. Say this was at ride height. They'd give me one number. On this example, it's 530 pounds. And then they would give me a 1-inch number, let's say. This would be the same as a 2-inch, 3-inch, and then you just run it up to where it is, and you'd read your new total number. That is basically how you can set up those 2 points or 3 points or however many data points your shock and spring or your chassis manufacturer gives you for that right front of your dirt late model or your left rear. Whatever corner you're working on, you can start to put together those points. Again, that's manual. This is our manual machine. But both machines, I guess I'll give a quick overview. Both machines are basically the same frames. There's no welds involved. They're a billet aluminum main, billet aluminum top. These are chrome rods. There's very little that could ever rust or ever wear out on these machines. Very robust computer systems that Dave has put together for us. We've had a lot of good success with them. We use tried and true technology. The machines will fit in a stacker trailer. There's a 1-inch spacer on the front to keep them level. You take that off with an Allen screw. These 2 wheels come off. You can slide it into a cabinet and bolt it to the floor if need be. Pretty easy. I'm a guy that uses a standard enclosed trailer, and I take mine in and out. And so we've got D-rings on the side where you can strap them down. Both machines come with that. This, again, is our manual machine. And so those are, what's the price on the manual? $35? $3,500. Any specials?
Free shipping.
So we're going to do free shipping on these.
Solid on that.
Yeah, whenever you're solid in a cabinet, just keep from flexing it onto the machine. We like to put a layer of rubber or some type of rubber grommet in between there to act as a shock absorber. Your trailers will twist going down the highway, and so just to keep it from wearing on the machine itself, we like to do that. So we'll put a little piece of rubber right there on the floor in between the bolt holes. But same machine here. Again, this is the manual machine. Now, we don't have the graphic one ready yet, but that'll be coming out sometime this year. Now I'm going to rotate over here to the automated machine, and I'll talk a little bit about the differences. The primary difference in the automated and the manual is the automated uses a different computer system that, again, Dave put together for us. And so whenever you first turn it on, you have a manual mode. So if you basically just want to use it like an old school smasher, you can use that. Yes, it's the same technology. We work with Keith Berner over at AccuForce for this as well. So we thank them as well. We've made a great partnership with them as far as being able to trade some ideas and things and make better products for both the companies. Back to the main screen. This is the main automated screen. And so you can run multiple tests. It gives us the center to center and what our wheel load is. You come here, you can preset up to 50 tests on here. So for right now, we've got a pull bar. If you remember, this is the same machine that we had a coilover in just a few minutes ago. And so we went to a pull bar, which simply changed that. This one here, we've got at 23.435. Our center to center, you can actually just push that button right there, and it'll automatically take it. We've got an extension distance, which we don't want to smash this. We just want to extend it 1 1/4 inches. We're set up to do a test, aren't we, Chad?
I'm not sure what file right here.
Let's go back up there.
Okay, there are 200 files on. You can store 200 files on the machine, and you can export the files on a USB stick to your laptop, so you can have the data in your trailer or in your hotel room at night when you want to study. So
you can export those. You can also, under the manual mode, take manual data points if for some reason you wanted to. So let's go to start test. It'll ask if you want to overwrite the existing file. It's kind of a safety to keep you from accidentally saving over your favorite setup. Now on the pull bar method, it's going to pull the pull bar apart to the preset distance. It's going to come back. It's going to cycle through 2 full rotations of that. Make sure it collects the proper data. And so while that's running, I will say on the manual mode to collect data, that is something I've used on the left rear, and I'm unsure how far I've traveled. If I've got a travel indicator on one of the left rear limiters, I have used it for that a number of times. Now, if you can zoom in here, it kicks us over to our data table. We've got our center to center distance and our travel, which these numbers are basically upside down since we're doing nothing but a tension or a pulling load. We've got our up travel and our down travel. So this is the load whenever it gets pulled, and then the load back. We call this one just the spring. We click the graph button. It'll ask us if we want to overwrite that. And we can see the graph. Now that graph is how these pucks engage and how the spring is set with some preload in it. This shows a up and then back down. Now, if we want to do something a little different, we can go to file number 2. So we went from file 001 to 002. Chad, you want to pull that down just a little bit? Okay. So now we're going to add 2 rounds of preload. We recommend to have a nylon nut, a nylock nut right here. But for this example, we're just going to use the standard one. So I put 1 round, 2 rounds. So what we have to do here is we have to go back to our, we changed the overall length just slightly. So we change that. Click save and exit.
No. Grab the other side.
Yep.
Oh, you did already.
Yep.
Sorry.
We click start. We're going to override. I'm standing at an odd angle, so I apologize. I keep missing the button there just slightly. So now we're going to pull it a second time. We'll go through both iterations. So if you zoom in here, we've got our data load tables, which you could manually compile these versus the prior one. You can look at that in Excel, but what a lot of people really like to do is look at the graph because most people are graphical. This is the most current graph for up and down. But if we click the setup, I can do the up travel on file number 1. And I can do the down travel on file number 1. And now I've got all 4 overlaid. So now I can compare what it looks like with the two extra rounds of preload versus the non-2 extra rounds of preload on there, so I can see where my numbers are getting higher. Where this is helpful is Dave Kane was talking about how he changes the springs every 15 races, you said? 15 shows. This can help you track that. You can start to overlay. You can start to see if they're starting to fall off a little bit. Also, you can start to see sometimes if your pucks will start to fall off a little bit. That said, every driver loves brand new pucks and a pull bar, regardless of what the machines say. They always say they love brand new pucks better. But that can help you track that. Also, for different track conditions, you may want more or less preload, and that can help you quantify what you feel as a driver or what your driver feels. It can help quantify that. You have anything else to add on the pull bar side?
I'd like to know what the word quantify means. I think you went over the top there.
Quantify?
These engineers coming in here with these big terms, I tell you.
Yeah, so basically, we just want to make sure that we can, I like the way the car feels. Why do I like it better? Now I can hopefully trace that back to the pull bar change that we made there.
Yeah, being able to graph and show the graph, and the asphalt guys can talk about the compression side with the bump stops, and being able to see the engagement point on the machine instantly is huge when you're doing any kind of pucks or bump stops or that kind of stuff for sure.
Yeah, so not only that on the pull bar, I know some guys that do the pull bars with manual machines or the old school bottle jack style machines, and that's better than nothing. But anytime you do that, where you use the machine for a few seconds, then you stop and you wait a certain amount of time, or you don't wait, there becomes a little bit of user error involved in there, because especially with the pucks, they submit a different load versus time. So if we were to load up a spring rubber and just let it sit there for, say, half an hour, it would have a different amount of load on it than it did originally. And so you start to get user error for that, or different types of condition errors. Whereas if it does it all at once, it takes that out of the equation.
Yeah, I mean, your race car, you're not feather footed off the corner and making that pull bar move. You're accelerating. So the
Yep.
pull bars are moving in it's 1 to 3 seconds, basically, their max travel. So we do recommend if you're going to use a manual machine and test your pull bar to film that. And if you take that and you film that motion and just run to inch, inch and a quarter to whatever you're traveling, film it, stop it at a quarter and see what it is. When we were building the manual machines and doing our pull bar development, and then when we got teamed up with Burner and got the automation, running an automatic test versus the manual is a huge difference in the load because you're not stopping and starting and getting feet off.
Yeah, if you are going to use the manual machine, try to hold your phone as steady as you can, film that, and then you can go back and you can make your own graph sheet where you, or we can send you one that's just kind of a generic graph sheet that'll give you your center to center or your travel number and then your load, and then you can turn that into some data points. This just makes your job a lot easier, especially at the track when we're short on time. On the pull bar side, this really helps. One thing I do want to talk about before we move on to the coilovers real quick, just to tie back to the load sticks. Justin, you may correct me if I'm wrong, but under the new USRA modified rules, you're allowed almost an unlimited right front bump.
I believe, yes.
So that adds a little bit of complexity because now you're going to have a certain amount of load on that right front of the car, and that can be carried by the spring, which we can measure with our ratcheting load stick, and then we're going to be able to introduce a bump load. And so for the UMP guys, we've done this a lot over the years where we want you to track both the spring load on the load stick plus the bump load whenever you start to smash just your bump and your shock in here. And that'll give you your overall load in that right front. Again, that's car specific, so it's measured at your shock location. But that will help you correlate a bump versus a spring and how much of each load you're trying to carry with that car. And so that's just one more thing. You can use these machines and both those two items for data.
It's all about building that notebook and getting that data. So when you're really good and you won the feature that night, you can go and repeat that the next time.
And so we'll move here to our final machine, which is just what we call our automatic with a side unloader. And this is basically an attachment. A lot of times the guys that are professional shock builders or at a race side service, or they've got an asphalt car with multiple cars going at one time, that they like the side unloader. That helps them work a little faster. What we're going to do is this is the same machine. It just has this additional side unloader, which is a $500 option. And so you want to demonstrate that check and step across.
You can smash the spring in the center jack and unload it and change springs on the center jack. So the asphalt guys, Brad, maybe you can elaborate when they're testing, in a hurry up atmosphere, asphalt race, when you got X amount of time and they're trying to change pump stops and whatnot, having the guy over here on the side of the loader taking the assemblies apart and having another guy over here getting this one dialed in, is that the key?
It's huge because, asphalt, if you do it from years ago, you get 10 minutes of practice. And you get 2 practice sessions. So if you come in and want to change a spring, whatever, whatnot, put the coil over on here, run it up on here. You can actually move this arm if you want to do it just singular by yourself. Take this, ratchet it around, pull the coil over off on this one. What's nice about this is you can have a guy working on the stops on this side, and you can have another guy working on this end, taking the spring off, making that ready for the next change.
So it's really easy to use the unloader. There's a little washer on the assembly that's captured in this arm that makes it real safe for unloading and getting the cup out just like that. And then you relax the package and take it out of the machine. And you can simultaneously have somebody working on that center one while you're taking this one apart.
Go ahead and pull that one out, show the washer.
And there's also an arm available for 5-inch springs as well.
And again, this arm will go on any of the machines, so you don't have to have the side unloader attachment. The washer here is part number 43014. That's a thin washer, so it allows for the what do you call these? The coilover, but I'm trying to think of the name for those. Barrel. The barrel springs. You won't catch the larger ones. They'll fit right in there. If you use a bearing, which a lot of people like to use, it can also help shield some dust out of there. And so it goes right on like that.
And all that does is capture it, so it's real safe. And also, some machines have an open entry there, so the assembly could potentially fly out and hurt you. We like to have that completely captured so that it can't move in and out of there, and it's just a safer way to unload load springs.
I've seen guys unload them without them with just the spring, and it's a little safer, just the spring is scary.
So we're gonna take this off real quick, and then we'll show how this item here works for the right front or for asphalt over dirt. One thing that we've updated for this year, if you're an asphalt driver especially, or you do not have a pull bar set up, we've got a swivel here, which I've got some load under this one, but see, I can swivel this any direction that I want to.
And where that becomes key is on a lot of asphalt cars, they'll have one shock bolt going one way and one going the other way. And you say, well, you can just turn the shock, is what I said. And he's like, Chad, we have a travel indicator on there, and we can't turn the shock. So to be able to take that assembly and have the shock bolts not be lined up, but then to be able to just spin that clevis and line it up and be able to put the assembly in there without changing the travel indicator is huge.
So one thing I want to show real quick, whenever you first fire up one of these manual machines, automatic machine, sorry, you'll come to it and you'll have a little bit of wheel load there, so we'll just we'll hold it for 2 seconds and we'll re-zero the machine. You can do that at any time that you may want to where you're using it, but every once in a while, whenever you first fire up a machine, if you forget to do that, you might be 5 or 10 pounds off.
It's the same functionality that Dave just put into the manual machine where you can zero the load.
So again, this is just like, this is in manual mode right now, so we can see how we've added load or subtracted load. But what we're really after on the automatic machine is this automated. So we put in a test. For this test, we're going to do a smash. So we're going to take a coil over that's 19.5 inches at start, put 3 1/4 inches, and take data every 1/8 of an inch. We're going to do a compression only test. We're going to save and exit. We're going to move to our start position, right? Yep. So we're at our start position. Now we're going to hit start test. Overwrite our file. On the spring, whenever we're smashing it, it only does 1 cycle versus 2 cycles on the pull bar. And we must be only about half hour degrees. Keep going. Keep going. All right, we're going to try to keep going. We understand the audio has been a little difficult. No audio. Nothing. Can't hear any audio. Sorry about that. Well, we're experiencing technical difficulties again. What do I want to do? I'm going to try to put it on there real fast here. We're going to adjust our mic.
Still nothing?
Reboot Facebook.
So you want to do a live trade show?
This was your idea.
I know.
There were 9 hours talking marbles in my mouth.
It seems easy when Bob and I do it for an hour. I mean, really, what could possibly go wrong?
I think it's all the extra.
So we're good. It was my idea.
I'm glad this is broadcasted.
Are we back? Sounds good. The back of the room. Let's roll. Here we go.
All right. All right. So we ran a test with our coilover. We can see here we've got our center to center, our travel numbers. Some people go off center to center. Some people go off travel numbers. We've got our up travel and our down travel. So our up travel is where we're smashing the spring. Our down travel is on the return. We can see those. Click this graph right here. This is a straight linear spring, so we still see we've got our up travel and then a little bit less load, but on our down travel there. So we go back to that. Now, Brad here is going to help me. We're going to go here to our automated. We're going to go from file number 000 to file number 001. I'm going to run the exact same test, but Brad, can you throw a couple spring rubbers in? So this is a very common adjustment. This is very similar to adding a packer. If you have bump stops on there, as far as you'll see a change in your rates.
All the cool guys do it this way.
So we've got 2 spring rubbers in there. We're going to run the exact same test one more time. So I click Start Test. Again, I went to a new file number. You'll see why here in just a second. While this is running, I want to reiterate, if you want the swivel end on your machine, make sure whenever you call the order that we put the swivel end on there. It's a little bit, still working? A little bit different than the traditional pull bar end. All right, we've got the exact same graphs that we had before. Now we'll click Graph. We'll let it override. Now we'll go to Setup with our up travel on 001 and our down travel on 000. Now you can see, I don't know if you can zoom in enough there. Our spring rubbers, they weren't very engaged until we got to about 1 3/4 inches, and then they start to do a little bit of a split there as far as the load goes. So you can see that hairline in between there. Again, that's kind of your fine tuning. What a lot of people do is they'll look at the graph and they'll go back to the hard numbers, and you'll be able to relate that to your chassis builder. Your 2-inch number in this instance is 1,008 pounds. One thing I do want to notice you to note is your up travel and down travel are considerably different. This is a high rebound shock. So we're going slow enough that this isn't a true shock dyno, but you do see some effects of the rebound in the shocks if they're a tie-down style shock. This is our automated machine with a side unloader. They're $6,800. That's our automated machine there. Without a side unloader, it's $6,300. And then our manual is $3,500. We're doing free shipping. These are truck freight items, so shipping is a pretty expensive item. We're doing free shipping if you order this week. Now I'd like to talk about our 4-link specialty software and reintroduce Dave. So again, this is kind of the next step on putting your chassis together. Dave, you want to take over?
Yeah, I guess before we look at the software, just a reminder, there is a measurement sheet available at ultraforcetech.com. And you can take that up and take a look at it. Just as the way the way that Chad recommends that you measure the rear suspension for a 4-link.
So that's probably the biggest question with the software is how to measure the car. So you pick a point on the car, just kind of explain, if we're looking at this, you got this good and close, Landon, you got a good shot of this. So whatever you pick for your 0-0, it can be your standard lower 4-link rod, or it can be your most forward hole or whatever. But when you pick that point, that's your point.
Right. Everything else is referenced. And again, this is a 2-dimensional software, so you're only getting things in this single plane. We do compensate for shock tip in as far as getting actual shock length, but the suspension itself is in 2 dimensions. So pick a location. It really doesn't matter what location. We typically like to pick the bottom mounting hole as a typical location. If you move the bar some other place, the bottom bar, keep the original location as a mounting hole. And I'm going to walk through this relatively quickly, and Chad, tell me if I'm missing something. You come in and you enter all the information as far as the geometry, as you saw on the measurement sheet. Top length geometry, length, location, bottom length, location, and then you start getting into cage information. Now the cage itself is referenced from the center of the cage. So location of the top hole from the center of the cage, and you can put these in any location that you want. You've got some pretty wild bird cage geometries that people can put them in all kinds of different locations. You can do a rear shock or front shock, so you can simulate what happens in the right rear or the left rear. Most people run a front shock in the right rear. You can add that. In fact, I'll just click that now just to show you what happens on that. You can add a front shock. In fact, you can do both of them if you want. If you wanted to add 2 shocks.
So when you're looking at the right rear, when you're looking at the left rear, you're going to look at it as you're sitting outside the left rear tire. And when you go to the right rear, also looking like you're from the left side of the car. So that's one of the common questions we get is, well, the right rear is backwards. Well, it has to be, and why is that? Because we'd have to have another set of software. And
Right, it's it's the same type of philosophy as why we do one corner of the car at a time and not do both of the rear suspensions. We need a three-dimensional software, significantly complicates things for everyone. So again, it's a simplified version to answer some of the questions that Chad often gets. If I move my top hole location up 2 inches and back 2 inches, if I change my length of my top rod 1/4 of an inch, what happens? So fill in all the information on the left here according to that. You can add a limit extension. The reference on everything is the top link angle, and it'll start off if the top link is horizontal, that'll be 0 degrees. But you can add a limit here and just say, I want to know. You can watch this thing down and cam over, but I want to let me add a limit on that. I'm going to say I'm going to prevent the top link reference from the 0, 0 position. I'm only going to let it go down 12 inches. You can see it stops the simulation at that point in time, the same as if your limiter chain comes to the end. So with that, I'm going to turn this off just to be able to run the entire simulation for you guys. You've got the option of manually sliding the suspension through its travel, watching all the information we'll show you there. We've got a dashboard here that gives you cage index angle, bird cage, rear shock length, and again, the rear shock length is compensating for the angles that you've mounted your shocks in there. A motion ratio of the shock motion, versus the axle motion. Limit extension, it tells you there where your limit is through its entire travel, and you see it would have stopped it back at 12 inches, it would have been right about in that location. And then the bottom angle location on the thing. It also gives you the ability then to take a look at those through the entire travel. And again, we're referencing the top angle as our x-axis, but we can look at all those different components that you see here in the dashboard in graph form. So you can also, if you want to go back, you can go back and simulate this thing. It'll actually click through this about every 1/10 of a second and it'll run through the entire simulation to the end, and then it's going to run the thing back, and you can watch that. So a couple other things. Let's say you've got 2 different geometries. If you go back up on the top here, once you've filled everything out, you can move that information out of the way so you get a much fuller screen. You can also have the ability to plot or overplot 2 different plots. So we've got a baseline one in here. Let's say we had a 0, I've called 1 0 index. So you've loaded one that you're actually going to see in the all the information for, and then you can add one that's a plot. Close this out. You'll still see whatever you have loaded in the geometry frame, but all your other information in the graphical form will now allow you to overplot both of those. So if I slide down there, the red one with the ball on is your baseline, your current configuration. In this case, we're overplotting that with 0 index. And now you can tell the difference in whatever change you made, change of bar length, change of position. You can see as the suspension went through its entire travel, the difference between your baseline that you actually got loaded and the one that you're overplotting to that information. One other quick thing I'm going to do, if I go up on the top here, there's 3 different icons up here. One is for creating a new file, one is for overlaying things, and one is for saving. And that's what the icons mean. But one of the questions that people often have is, can you do a 3-link modified rear suspension? I'm gonna load that 3-link in there. Close that. Running this thing through its paces. The 3-link's gonna look pretty goofy running with that much travel. This is just an example of a 3-link where the bottom bar, the top bar here is your 3rd link over the rear end, and then either your left side or your right side bar. So you can plot a 3-link suspension. Again, it pushes it into 2 dimensions and not into 3 dimensions, but allows you to be able to simulate that information as well.
Very cool.
I think that covers it.
Hey, Dave, we had a question.
Okay. What voltage?
Well, we're on a 110 voltage and any type of generator. We do have a surge protector that whenever you're in the trailer at the racetrack on generator power, you have to run the surge protector. There's little fusible links in the power conversion units that if your generator spikes when your 3 rooftops kick in on your SNS on your 12,000 watt Onan, you're gonna melt your inverter. So a surge protector plugged in anytime you're on the road. Otherwise, it's standard 110. When you're at home on shore power, you don't need the surge protector. So
I thought they were referring to the voltage for the software simulation.
I think
I'm
that's
just kidding.
110. Standard PC. It'll work on an iPhone, an iPad.
Yeah,
There's a mobile download versus explain the difference between. That's one thing we get people that use the mobile download versus the download it to the PC is kind of the big problem we have.
yeah. So you've got the option to run this on a laptop, and a lot of people do that. Or if you want something available on your track, right at the track, you can download the same software to your phone. Obviously, it's a lot smaller to take a look at and look at plots, but you do have the ability to run it on iPhone or Apple. It is a web-based interface to the information. So any browser, we typically recommend Chrome, but it should work in any browser.
And we just lowered the price of this down to $99 per seat, and you get to put it on 2 devices. So we've made it a bunch more affordable for you guys to use, and it's a really cool tool to be able to move a link around instead of having to do it on the car and see the steer change and the shock length change and the index change. So just a really cool software that Dave developed for us that we wanted to get so that we could learn more about the 4-link suspension or the 3-link suspension. So.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're asking about where the mobile software is found, but that'll just be a link in the email, right?
Yeah, so when you purchase the software, you'll get an email, and the links are in there, and there's a video on how to download the software, whether you're on a mobile or a PC. You get, again, 2 devices, so you can put it on your laptop or your PC at home and then put it on your iPad and take it to the racetrack. So once you buy the software, you get that email about that with your activation codes. It's pretty simple to do if you watch the video. Kind of lays it down black and white for you. Did you tell them free shipping on Ultraforce machines?
Yep.
Our place next week. We every year we go to PRI to the big show, and we take a bunch of machines there, trying to save you guys shipping, and allow you to pick them up at the show. So without the PRI show, we thought we'd give you free shipping on any machine ordered next week. We'll ship it to you for free, whether you buy it from a dealer, Motor State, Peabody's, whoever you want to buy it from. Buy it direct from us. We'll ship it to you for free. So. Anything else?
Mike wants to know pavement cars 3-link on the software.
Same thing. You're not going to get nearly the motion on an asphalt car, but it will tell you the changes that you make and what it does to the little bit of steer. You don't get nearly the motion, but you can still put the asphalt technology in there too. Any other questions rolling in? Our schedule got all screwed up because of all the problems. We still got good audio. So we're sorry for the inconvenience we've had. We're having a lot of fun doing this. It is 5 after 3. We're probably going to keep going if you guys want us to keep going. We got a couple other things. We probably need to talk a little bit about limiters. There's a ton of limiter options. We'll probably wheel a different card in here quick, so bear with us. Or I can grab the door while you guys are doing that. Where's the pipe?
People
So I go on that first. So this is our setup stick and our bump steer / toe / setup plate. So these are a setup stick, and what these are nice for is setting your suspension to your ride height or your compressed height and setting your front end. So this is a huge advantage when you tear the right front off the car.
Yeah.
And you have your set stick, and you can put the stick in there, put your new suspension on there, put the bump plate on there, caster camber the whole car, tow the car on jack stands basically, and go to the ground and go to the racetrack. So to explain a little bit about this plate, and this plate is massive. It's 3/4 inch thick billet, machined, perfectly square, no welded, no form, no inaccuracies. And these slots allow you to determine your tire height. Okay, so no tire is the same height; they're different circumferences. So this lets you measure where ground is, so that when you got this on the hub on the bottom, you can simulate where you are with your sticks on there. So you can take this and have pretty accurate front end setup stuff, and that's what you're doing on your car.
Yep. Once I have my center to center where I want it, I lock jam nut that, and then I put it in the front end every time I want to do caster, camber, toe. And then if I want to do toe, I can put these plate on with these two holes, let it hang down, measure, get the toe, put it back up, put that in there. And I want to start bump steer and get my plus and minus 1 inch. And then I mark here, and then I do my bump steer, squaring for the rear end works, everything. So
Yep, so you can take 2 of these, put them on the rear end, you bump the wall, you can put these on each side, measure the camber and the caster of the rear end to see if it's screwed up. Not the caster, obviously the rear end doesn't have caster. A couple hours in here. The toe and the camber on the rear end. But this is a real nice setup plate, beefy, a little bit expensive, but you get what you pay for. You want a flat piece of 1/8 bent, not real accurate, or you want something that's perfectly CNC machined that is going to give you the real answer. So we had when we had all of our problems there earlier, we were going to talk a little bit about Batesville, what's coming up. So we're Bristol, but it's the Batesville bar. So big racetracks with big loads, and we're expecting it not to be a perfect surface. Let's face it, it's a dirt track on concrete. So we are going to have a special J-bar without the adjuster in it. It'll just have a Heim, a little bit stronger, just in case the track gets rough. Some other things to think about there. We make our door bar. Where'd you put the plate?
Right here.
So if your race car does not have a door bar plate in it, I think we would recommend. Was that on the safety recommendations? It's not.
I don't think it was, but we would recommend it anyway.
We make these cool pieces that go around. If your race car isn't built with a door plate, it's really easy to fasten it on a car that's already powder coated. Could save your life. You're going fast enough. They're going fast enough. If you're not door plated, not a bad choice to put it on your
1/8 inch steel.
Bristol car. And they are mandating the fire bottle, the big bad boy, right? So we do make the fire bottle clamps for the fire bottle brand. So we have those available for all kinds of bar sizes to mount that fire bottle in your Bristol ride. So we wanted to touch a couple of things there. Any other safety things that concerns? Watch Monday actually on Bob and Chad. We're excited. We're going to have Mr. Randy LaJoy on, and seats are huge. Them guys are going to be going probably 80, 90 miles an hour there, and you crash in a 1 layer piece of junk, $30 seat, you're going to get hurt. So we're excited to have Randy come on Monday on the Bob and Chad show and talk about how to properly mount your seat and not get hurt. So we'll talk a little bit about limiters. We'll get a couple of our expert race car drivers up here to help me. I'm getting winded, so whoever wants to come up. Seifert, my boy, almost won the Super Nationals.
Glad I could help out.
So one of the things, we talked about this earlier in the year in a post, but when you have a stock lower control arm, so we have a little bolt-on guy there to fasten your left front chain or your right front chain to your stock lower control arm. We also are going to make this piece, or we're going to release it in the weld-on version too. So if you want to weld it to the lower, we have it on our 293 axle clamps here where we got this little weld guy. So if you just want to weld it and not have it bolt on, we're going to be offering them. Do you know the part number off that?
293C.
293C. So that is just a little clevis that you could weld on any component to adapt a limiting chain to. So that's pretty much the front limiters. Rear limiters.
Chad, you want to talk real quick about which styles for the front?
So yeah, we have two different styles. This is our quick pin. This one here was our double adjuster style. Here with the double adjuster and the quick pin. More accurate with the double adjuster style. The quick pin style is 1/4 inch increments, so it's not quite as fine tuned, but you can't have any springs, any rubbers, any devices in here in an IMCA modified atmosphere. When you get to open modifieds, late models, we make just about everything you can imagine. So we got different cans, different holders. Is this what you ran? Did you run that?
Yep, that's the World Outlaw approved one.
Yeah, so they made a rule that said it had to be open, had to be exposed, could only be 1 inch tall, 2 inch diameter. Well, when you use the harder neoprene stuff, you don't get enough travel out of it. So we worked with RE Suspension. They built us some cool foamies, and we got this cage that we can put them foams in there. We got 4 different durometers there. This is also the apparatus where you can put the spring in for a 6 coil or a left rear limiter. So like I said, man, we got options to limit things until we're.
What's really nice about this one too, a lot of guys are using packers like you use in your bump stops and whatnot for adjusting the height and the tension out.
That's cool. You can put Velva washers in the limit chains. This is a new can. Dave, are you using this one with the threaded body? So this is our new kind of a spin-off of our 291 can. This one doesn't give you as much adjustability. So we made this threaded can where you can adjust the length real easy. You can put Belvilles, biscuits, foams, springs, whatever you want inside of these cans. So if there's a limiting device, I think we make it. Pretty sure we got any option known to man. And we also can put travel indicators on there so that you can tell how far it's going under your loads. Any other things you guys want to add there while I get a drink of water?
Jared, you want to talk about cages?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about cages. Full lineup of different varieties. Anything from the greasable bronze inserts to the bearings in regular and heavy. We offer our combo cage, which you can separate the brake or you can have it actually bolted together. Allows you to run any combination of brake and suspension. We've had some different things come out in the way of two-link stuff. Different sanctioning bodies. They are going to some more of a fixed shock mount. So that's something new that's come to our lineup to keep some of the sanctioning bodies happy.
We got a new one here. This is our new narrow combo. So we just did this for cars that need a little bit more room. So we made our brake floaters now so that you can adapt and do the combo to the brake floater. So it just moves the cage out another inch, I believe. And what we're doing now is we're just gonna have a bearing spacer in here with the 0 index trends, and we're getting so much motion that the clamp rings in there tend to hit. So we're just keep making little changes to make the products fit the cars better and function better. And then another cool piece we got is that guy right there. Grab that wrench. So with the double shear suspension cages and trailing arm brackets and that, it's kind of hard to get in there to adjust them trailing arms. So we made this jam nut that goes outside of the double shear plates and just makes it easier to adjust the 4-link rods. What else? Sliders? Questions? Any questions? No?
Big thing with sliders, maintenance, guys. I mean, let's not be running a full season on sliders. You got to tear them apart. You got to clean them. You got to grease them. They're easy to do. Some of us simplest guys can really do it. It's pretty easy to do. Pull apart, clean it up, put some fresh grease in, and put it back together. I mean, it's a 10-minute project.
Really, the most important thing is that piston spins. We have a lot of guys that build it, rebuild it, and then they tighten that nylock all the way up, and the piston won't spin. And the piston has to spin so that it goes in and out freely. So that's really the only important feature there when you're putting it back together.
Chris has a question. about the clamp on jack bolt. So that'd be the 368 over there with the wood jack.
Right there at the top.
There is one on there too. He wants to know if we've had problems with them slipping on heavy cars, like stock cars.
As far as I know, no. We do have a bolt here. I don't know if I can get real close or how's that? Where do you want me? Farther? So we do have you can clamp it on and a shock. I don't think a shock will spin that, but if you're on a spring atmosphere, you would want to put that bolt through the tube so that it doesn't spin under loads.
Chad, what grease do you recommend for the slider?
Synthetic wheel bearing grease on the sliders is what we use here. What else we got? Any other questions?
Feel free to call. We'll offer tech support.
Yeah.
If we don't have the answer, somebody we know will get it.
Free shipping on the Ultraforce orders next week. We're sorry about the difficulties we had today. We had a lot of fun doing it. Is there things we missed on our to-do because we got
The only
screwed
new
up?
product we missed was the pull bar Hyman spacers. If you want to grab that out.
Oh, do that real fast. So we've been making pull bar brackets for a while, and we've been making high misalignment spacers for a while, but this is our new ones for the pull bar. So they adapt the 3/4 Heim to a 5/8 bolt on your pull bar brackets. And we have these in a bunch of different widths to space it left and right. And we made our own kit, right?
Yep.
You should be talking about this, not me. It's your baby. How many come with it?
It's going to be
We'll get back with you.
1 inch, 1.5 inch, 2, which is that centered, 3 and 3.5.
Okay, so we'll have plenty of options there to dial yourself in, moving it left to right in this kit. And we're selling it just the bolts, spacers, end plates, all.
It's kind of to be determined yet.
This was your baby. You should be up here talking about it. But is it just the bolts and the spacers?
And the plates, and it'll be everything. Or we'll just have a plates too with the bolt kit.
So we're going to offer this in a couple different options, but those are our new high misalignment spacers with a 5/8 bolt for a 3/4 Heim on your pull bar brackets.
Oh, Hyman spacers. How many?
How to measure high misalignment spacers? Good, just that.
Sorry, kind of gave up on the right.
Yeah, I guess we did.
One of the most common questions we get is the high misalignment spacers and how to measure them. So all the spacer lengths are determined from the end of the spacer to the lip where the Heim butts up against. So this one here would be 1.5 inches. So whether it's the ones for the pull bar, for the 4-link rods, all the high misalignment spacers are the distance from the edge of the Heim to the end of the spacer.
So how do you, so if I have a 4-inch slot that I need to get spacers for, how would I approach that to figure out what spacers I need?
If you have a 4-inch wide gap and you have a 5/8 Heim, the 5/8 wide Heim is 3/4, so that'd leave you with 3 1/4. Divided by 2 is what?
There are some floating around that are 0.85.
What?
There's some of the 5/8 times that float around are 0.85 gap.
That's you would want misalignment one in.
High misalignment. Well, if you have a standard one, it's 3/4. So you would minus 3/4 from your gap and divide by 2 to get your 2 spacer widths.
I've got
question?
I've got a question here from Nick. Front caliper mount for Mustang 2 spindles. What's the advantage?
Mustang 2 spindle, we don't have one, right?
Yeah, it's on there.
That's a Pinto?
Pinto.
No. To go to the front of the spindle?
Yeah, that's what's the advantage of
So there is no advantage. The only reason that we did it on the front, I don't know if you want to wheel that out here or not. Or do we want to just pan or?
Cover your ears.
So the only reason we made the front mount caliper bracket was so that the elite cars could run their shock behind and not have a clearance issue. So any brake caliper, doesn't matter if it's on the front or the rear, it doesn't know where the caliper is mounted. It just knows that it's trying to squeeze it and slow it down. So, in the rear, it could be here, it could be here, it could be on the front. It doesn't matter where it's positioned. It doesn't affect it. The only reason we went on the front was for clearance.
brake bleeder. Yeah, we got show the new brake bleeder bottle.
Show the new brake bleeder bottle. This is our Jay Sauter inspired brake bleeding bottle, which seems pretty simple, but when you think about it, it's really cool because the hose goes down in there, which goes over the bleeder. And then this wrench, we weld this on the socket, which clears the caliper. So when you put a normal wrench on a caliper, you get a quarter of a turn, you hit it, then you got to go up and redo it. And it's just not a real fluid motion. So this just raises that up so you can do it in one sweep and be able to open and close it and get a good true bleed out of it.
Billy wants to know if we have a bracket to put the caliper on the right front, which is what you just.
That's what I just showed, right? Yeah, on the right front, on the front side. Yep. Is that what he's talking?
Right front, so either way, front or behind the spindle.
Front or behind on the Pinto spindle, yep.
Receiver mounts.
Receiver mounts. Okay, we make 3D printed. We started doing some 3D printed stuff. So this is our receiver mounts that we make for the receiver brand Element and Fusion, and also the RE switch. We go to tubes, or we can go to the flat surface if you want to put it on your helmet or on your roll bar behind your head. So just trick little 3D printed pieces for your receivers.
The hold it through a flip.
And Jason has flipped. How many times did you go over?
I flipped twice and landed on the roof both times, and receiver never moved. So they work.
We're going to keep going here for a couple more minutes. Got 2 more items to talk about. These are our new safer weight clamps, and this might be a pretty good idea for your Bristol ride too. So last year at the Deer Creek, it was the year before, Deer Creek Speedway, Cole Queensland came to me and he said there's a hole in the billboard over there and a chunk of lead went through the billboard, and it was because the weight clamp flew apart. You guys all right back there? Okay. All right, awesome. But anyway, these go through, the bolt goes all the way through the clamp and through the lead instead of, where we have the old style where it's tapped in there. So in a hurry up situation, your crew chief, you're screaming at him, I need that 20-pound chunk on there. And he's cross-threading that bad boy in there, stripping it out. And you go out on the speedway into turn 1 and that lead flies off and either goes through your buddy's helmet or the billboard outside the cars, outside the fence. So just a nice, safer weight clamp there. Ricochet, we teamed up with John Hansen and his Ricochet brand. We took over the manufacturing of that. We made a cool aluminum end here with a bolt-on piece. So these save your shock shaft from getting any nicks from rocks and dirt. And they are replaceable. So if you do shatter the plastic part, you just bolt a new piece on your aluminum part that's on your shock. I'm about done, but somebody else is gonna have to talk. What's the thing? Tie rod. We can keep going all night. Is there anybody watching?
1:30.
Right front tie rod. Last item. I'm about done. I'm not gonna be able to give my speech tonight at the Christmas party, so somebody else will have to do that. This is our bent right front tie rod. We sell it in 2 forms, with Heims or with a stock inner. Just gives you the clearance when you're rolling over on the right front. And this one comes with a cool little grease zerk, so you can grease that. We are using a sealed, pre-greased inner. Pretty nice little piece there. Is this where we shut the thing and call it? I tell you what, this was a good time. You guys all want to come up here? We do a high five, whatever. These guys here are what make it happen. I started this company 24 years ago, basically on a whim and a prayer, because I loved racing. But these are the guys that really make it happen. They're the ones out there destroying the stuff, building the cars, engineering, making the cool stuff that you guys come up with. We really appreciate you tuning in today. We had a blast, other than the little hitch in the giddy up, but you're going to have that when you do a live deal. So thank you to everybody that tuned in. Keep watching. We're going to do a lot of live stuff. We got Landon here on board now that's running the camera. He's going to do some cool stuff for us in the upcoming years here, and we're excited to do more technical stuff. We're going to be coming to the track, so if we show up and throw the mic in your face for a testimonial about a product and some fit function stuff. So we're going to have fun. Again, we appreciate it. Love you guys. Happy New Year. We're great to be here. This was awesome, I think, for the little problems we had. Thank you guys all for coming. Appreciate it. And we'll see you soon at the Speedway.